Welcome to the last podcast of 2024. And man, have you felt like in 2024, you messed up, made mistakes? Have you felt like just in the past week or two over this Christmas time or holiday season for you that you've blown up at the kids and yelled at them and done things that you're like, oh, I thought I was over that. I wish I would stop doing that. Well, we can relate. And in this podcast, I wanted to share a specific moment that happened just a few weeks ago where I did exactly what I would tell you not to do, right? The ways in which I coach parents to handle situations differently, I still sometimes fall back in to old ways of doing it. And so we wanted to end 2024 with just this picture of we're not trying to be perfect parents here. We really just want to be on a journey with you towards becoming healthier parents who know what to do when we mess up and when we fail. Why? Because our kids need to know what they can do when they mess up, fail, and make mistakes, right? Life isn't over because you fail. So I want this podcast to not only equip you with what to do, the steps we take specifically after we make a mistake to really get good out of those failures, but then also to just fill you with encouragement that we're in the same boat. We're not doing everything right, nor is that our goal. So I really think you're going to enjoy this podcast as I share this moment with you and walk you through those steps, and hopefully it will help you repair some of the ways things have been broken or ruptures have happened in your relationship with your kids over this Christmas break. So we are so excited going into this new year. Happy for you to join us. Please take a moment, if you haven't already, to pause, leave a comment, leave a review. Very helpful to us. And also be thinking about what your parenting journey is going to look like in 2025. We are planning some fantastic podcasts to help you out. We are going to start the year out with a great interview next week. It's going to be amazing. And then we're going to probably do some series coming up to the first part of the year. We haven't totally fleshed it out yet as of the recording of this podcast, but look forward to it as we want to give these specific tools to help you be able to create the family you're wanting in 2025.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello and welcome to the Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi, I'm Sara.
And Sara, we're just a few days away. It's almost 2025.
Yeah, I know. Can't
Right?
believe
Hasn't it gone by so quick?
it has. Yeah.
Right. I bet every listener.
Those old people who say it goes fast, they're right.
I know, dude. Yeah, it seems like this whole parenting thing, it's gone by pretty fast, right? The kids are growing up so quick, but another year is almost over. And you and I were thinking about, last week, if you didn't hear our podcast, we gave these 5 great steps to kind of help you have a better Christmas time, holiday season with your
5
kids.
kind of intentional things.
Yeah, to be more successful. But you know what I bet happened? Because I know it happens to us too. I bet people messed up.
Mm-hmm.
I bet there was times when people blew up at their kids. They spoke to their kids in ways they didn't want to, right? They didn't like how they treated them in certain moments,
Yeah.
And,
There was conflict that they really didn't want to have.
Well, and I remember a few weeks before, a couple of weeks ago, we also had the Messy Family Podcast couple on here. And you and I are all about, not about teaching perfect parenting. We're about being honest and vulnerable with listeners and people we coach that we're messing up. We make mistakes.
It's more of we're journeying with you. We're doing this too. And it's going to be imperfect. Yep.
Well, Sara, changing a family history or legacy is hard. Rewiring your brain is super difficult. We want to just go back to what was done to us in both good ways and bad ways. And it's really hard to be able to create new ways of doing it. Even so, a lot of times our imagination can't see how could that situation been done differently, because we get caught up to it. And in those moments, we slip back to old habits. And then we beat ourselves up about it and get mad at ourselves. I'm sure every listener can relate to this. And I bet it happened once, if not more than once, over the past week or so.
Yeah, just all the ways that we are human and we don't want to use guilt and then we wind up using guilt. Or we don't want to be inconsistent parent and then we're inconsistent parenting. all the things, that you intend to do. And then you like, oh, I missed it again.
And so we wanted to spend this podcast. One particular incident happened that I thought was just a great example of not how Sara and I do it perfect, but actually how many times I'm pointing at myself. If you're on YouTube watching me, I'm pointing at myself. Many times I will mess up and I will revert to old ways, old habits of anger, of yelling or intimidation or whatever, just getting mad to then somehow get my kids to do something. And I'm always working on it, always trying to get better. The kids know that. But these moments happen, and one happened a couple weeks ago. And I thought Sara would be so great to just share that, this situation, and then what we do about that. We don't just sit back and say, oh yeah, we're not perfect, we mess up. But we actually want to do something about it, not to become perfect, but to actually grow and learn from it.
Yeah. Kind of laying out the strategies that we have found successful in our lives and with others, and giving them a game plan.
Well, and Sara, you and I see this all the time with couples that we're helping. A lot of times it just isn't happening. What we tend to do is we tend to mess up, beat ourselves up about it, and then just hope that it won't happen again. Or we might even make promises that it won't happen again, but we're finding that we're stagnant, we're stuck in place, we're not really changing. And I'm sure a lot of listeners feel that way. They're like, I've been trying to change this for a decade, and I'm still doing the same dumb things or same frustrating things or making the same mistakes and beating myself up about it. And then now what's really frustrating is I'm seeing it in my kids too. They're making the same mistake, And so then all that shame is there, and none of that is going to help us change.
Yeah.
And so I want to say this, Sara, like if you're relating to this, you're like, yes, that happened. Yeah, that totally happens with me. Going into 2025, I know there's all these like, New Year's resolutions, that kind of stuff. If you're just saying, we want to do this better, and there are so many great resources on how to stop yelling and doing that stuff. But if you're really wanting to make a transformational change to where you're not becoming a perfect parent, but you're becoming a united couple on how to really teach your kids to be self-controlled and self-disciplined, all those kind of things, be thinking about checking out getting coaching for that. And that is something that I get to do with parents all throughout the world. And if you are interested in learning more about that, just email me at kyle@artofraisinghumans.com, and I'd love to see if you're a good fit. So now, after I've just said, hey, I'll coach you, let me tell you how I screw things up. I want to tell you. So there was this great moment that I thought was a really good example, Sara, about what happens, periodically with our lives, or for me in particular with our kids. We were at this beautiful place, this botanical garden. It's got Christmas lights. We've been excited about this. I know I was pumped to see it. You've been looking forward to it. We've never checked it out in this way,
One of those magical Christmas activities you plan to do.
Maybe another new annual Christmas thing we might do.
Make Christmas music and lights and,
And the kids are going to be fantastic.
Memories.
Yes. We're just going to be laughing and skipping all the time through it. And, for the most part, it was great. It was
terrific.
It was great.
We had a blip.
Yeah. Well, we had a blip, and what I want to tell you what happened, and then I want to walk you through it and how we then learn as a family from it, okay? So things were going great. I was loving the lights. There was a moment where our two youngest kind of split off, and they were looking at some different lights, and me, and our oldest were walking around looking at
lights. We were kind of taking some pictures and stuff, so they just went in the little area near us, and they were exploring.
And then I was walking, and I tend to do this. I tend to kind of get interested in something, and I'm walking off towards it, right? So I'm walking off away. I see this green bridge that I think would be an awesome thing
to
check out.
And light.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, let's go to that bridge, right? So I'm wanting all of you to go that way, to go to the bridge. And then our middle child, Brennan, he has a different idea. So he decides I
don't want to play follow the leader. I have another idea. Follow me.
So he has this other trail that he got excited about. Now, I'm already dead set on that bridge. I'm sure you've been there. Like, I want to go this direction. So I see a conversation happening. I see Brennan talking to Sara, and in my mind, immediately there's some judgment and criticism starts going on. Like, oh, he's trying to convince mom to convince me. Well, that ain't happening. Like, as soon my brain's like, I'm not doing that. I want to go on this. So Sara, you come over, you start to tell me what Brennan's saying. And I'm in this state of mind where I'm just not interested. I don't really care what Brennan wants. It's like, I really just want to do what I want. And I want Sara to just go along with it. I'm like, Sara, be a team. Tell the kids to get over it and follow me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So then in that moment, I could feel there's tension, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking the tension would not be here if you would just agree with me. And if you and I could
Just follow the leader.
if we could team up and tell Brennan his idea isn't good, my idea is better.
Yeah.
And then even once we got on the bridge and started going, Brennan did eventually go reluctantly. He was cooperating. We get across the bridge, but I'm still really annoyed at Brennan. And my frustration level's probably at like a 5 or 6. And I feel like I need to say a word to Brennan. I need to have a little talk with Brennan, as we will do, as parents will do. And this needs to be a lesson, right? So I pull him aside and I start saying dumb things like, listen, Brennan, like, who do you think paid to get into this thing? Like I paid for it, right? And so sometimes as a kid, you just got to like go along with what parents want. You don't need to it isn't about you. It isn't about, it's about what we want because it's just like all these dumb things are coming out of my mouth, right? And I'm like seriously believing this stuff as I'm saying it because it's not that they're all wrong. I mean, there are some truths to that in a sense of we did pay for it, right? And I did have an agenda, but it is confusing to a kid because up until then, I've been fine doing what I wanted. And I never, ever communicated or articulated that bridge was something I wanted to do, right? Until it came in conflict with what he wanted. So needless to say, it wasn't a pretty moment. Actually, I was kind of embarrassed because there was a couple that came by and I was kind of like raising my voice at Brendan. I was thinking, what if they know I teach this stuff? What if they know I coach? Yes, they might be like, oh my gosh, that's that guy that we saw on social media or something. I'm sure nobody even knew who I was. But in that moment, you do think that and think, man, I've been exposed. I'm a hypocrite. What an idiot. So there was this sense of shame for a bit too, that I had to kind of work through. And it took me probably a good 10 minutes or something like that, 15 minutes to finally get back to a space where I wasn't still thinking, why are you doing this? What an idiot. Stop doing it. Or also judging Brennan. Like, why does he have to be so rigid and like demand his own way? I wish he would just say, thanks, Dad. This is fantastic. Whatever you want to do.
Wherever you want to go. I'm so excited to go there too.
And so it looked like for about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little less than that, our beautiful botanical garden time had been derailed. Yeah. And I felt like
this would be the memory the children take with them.
And they won't want to go back to the botanical
garden. Yeah.
And they won't want to go back to that again. And so, man, for a little bit, I was blaming Brennan, like he ruined this for us, which we can do. I know. What's his problem, dude? But then I was like, no, you ruined it, Kyle. This is what you do. You get triggered. You turn into your dad in these moments when my dad would get mad. And now I'm like channeling him and being really rigid and saying these like very, things that are just ridiculous. And I want everybody just to agree with me, So by the time we get into the car, I'm now calm. I'm now composed. And this is the part I really want, if you can relate to this, so I'm sure you have. I'm sure some listeners right now are like, yes, that happened just yesterday.
Oh, real quick too. We kind of got to a better place where we did talk a little bit in the moment.
Yeah.
And we got to a better place. But it was one of those where it's like, okay. We're having fun again, but we're going to need to come back and have a better, longer conversation.
Yeah.
So we didn't leave everything in shambles as we just trudged through the rest.
No, we did not. No.
So we did some real quick kind of, Kyle and I had a conversation. We had a conversation with Brendan and our other two and kind of got everything, all right, settled. Yeah. Here we go. Everyone's requests are honored and heard. And then we just knew we were going to have to come back and follow.
Yeah. So what you're saying, by the time we got into the car, everyone was in a better space.
Yeah. I mean, the evening, and we had we had a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah, we ended on some good notes. But as we got into the car, I knew there needed to be some follow.
Yeah. It wasn't truly settled, even though we had returned to some peace, things were going to linger if we didn't address them.
Yeah, linger, and also I think start creating some bad habits, right?
Yeah.
That these things needed to be addressed. Because you guys, if you don't know this, like kids will develop these stories in their mind at those moments. Lots of times the kid will develop this self-anger, this self-hatred towards themselves of those thoughts I had of like, look at Brennan messing this up for us. He will feel like he'll start thinking that too. So you really
the resentment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have
Dad won't listen to me,
I don't matter.
Yes.
They don't care what I want. I just need to do what I'm told, and kind of that resentment can build.
Well, and lots of times what Dr. Siegel calls that is like a toxic rupture happen. So there's a toxic rupture. So we want to go back and we want to be intentional how we follow up. Now, as I kind of share the follow-up with you as a listener, this is something that took us a long time to get there, to where the kids were receptive and open to trusting that the follow-up was not going to be a moral lecture, okay? Many times parents will complain to us that, my kids just won't do that. It's because the kids don't believe it's going to be helpful. They think it's just going to be a piling on session where we all tell the kid what they did was bad, right?
You're going to justify what you did, tell them how wrong they were, and they just get to hear it again and again.
So this car ride home, I needed to, as the dad, as the one who kind of instigated this conflict, I needed to get myself into a place where I was seeking understanding. I really just wanted to understand their point of view and see how they saw it.
Step one.
Yeah, step one, seek understanding. So I'm going to follow up, reconnect, and have that as my goal. How do I do that? How do I model that? Well, I just say something like, hey, did you guys like how that went? Right? That's an interesting question. And that typically is an inviting question where it doesn't feel like the kid's going to get in trouble or something by saying. So the kid can say, no, I didn't like how that went, And then I want to make sure
you should expect them to say no.
Yeah.
Right? So they should feel that they can say no.
Yep.
And no, I didn't like that. So it should be like, yeah, you didn't like that, right? I didn't like it, right?
And at this point, I might not even say I didn't like it either. I might just say,
right.
I might leave it with that.
Right.
And you're gonna want to insert your thoughts. You're gonna want to insert your opinion. You're like, hey, let me tell my side of the story. But first, I want to hear theirs. I mean, these moments of conflict, if you really want them to really be repaired and us to actually grow and learn from, and you actually want the child to be able to take responsibility for whatever part they played in it, I first need to understand how they perceived it, understood it, felt about it.
Yeah, you want to, I want to know exactly what it felt like to be in your shoes.
Yeah.
Without a judgment, just set all that aside and just be super curious. What was it like to be you in that moment?
And initially, if you're first doing this, of new you've been doing your family, it's probably best just to do it one-on-one, maybe with each kid, So as you're putting to bed later that night, hey, how did you feel about what happened? Like, or did you like how that went? And then each of them could tell you. But in this car ride home, all three wanted to talk about it. But Abby in particular, our oldest, she started sharing her perspective on it and had some really great views about how she kind of saw Brennan's side, also saw our side.
And I think just be aware that they might say some things that trigger you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say most likely they're going to say something you want to jump in and defend yourself or
justify.
You're going to be triggered. Like, how dare you say that? Or what do you mean by that? Or that's not true. And you just hold that. Just go, okay.
Especially, Sarah, even some of their facts might not be accurate, right?
Yeah.
And this happened. No, I didn't do that. I didn't say that, right? It's a temptation and then you're going to shut them down. And then they're going to go like, I don't want to do these with you.
Because the goal is not to correct details or anything. It's what did it feel like to be in your shoes? And right or wrong, that's how they felt. And that's what you need to know. If you want them talking to you, you need to be in that space.
Yeah. And their feelings don't have to be something it's not that you have to agree with them.
Right.
They're not even asking. They're just, you just need to understand. Just hold them with them. Okay. So that's the first one. I'm seeking understanding. Okay. And then the next part, after I've heard that, and I feel like I've understood that, and I can kind of check with them. Is there anything else? Did you tell me everything you felt about it? Then I might say something like, hey, can I first take responsibility for my part of this? And then I might say, I'm sorry for raising my voice at you, or I'm sorry for talking to you that way. That's not how I want to talk to you. Okay. And a step that I really like, Sarah, is moving into saying, could I have your forgiveness? Like, would you forgive me for talking to you that way? Would you forgive me for raising my voice? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I really don't want it to be just I'm sorry session. Yeah. Too often I did as a dad early on, just say I'm sorry a lot about a lot of different things. And yet there was like, okay, you're sorry. Great. But there was no like connection or action asked from the other person about receiving that,
And I think that gets tricky because I don't know if you've ever been mad at someone and you're like, yeah, I forgive you. But you realize it's really going to be a minute before you've truly been able to let that go or move past that. And our children are the same way. They might be, rather we feel like they should be or shouldn't be, doesn't matter. They might be upset with us about something and they can say, I forgive you. You can say you're sorry, but just realize it might take them a little bit to work through that truly. Yep. And our goal is for them to truly work through it, not just a quick, I'm sorry, I forgive you. Because, we all know that can be empty.
Well, and my goal in doing that too, Sarah, is I want to model to them how to take responsibility for my actions, right? I want them to see me do that because if I want to raise kids who take responsibility for their actions, I need to first start by doing it with mine, right? Yeah. And then I might say, if now I feel like we're in this good space, I might say, could I kind of tell you how I saw it, And in this moment, when I'm sharing this, Sarah, I like how Brene Brown, through her writings, has kind of encouraged this approach to say the story I was telling myself was this. So if you hear that in that phrasing, the story I was telling, I'm not attacking my son. I'm not saying you did this. I'm not blaming. I'm just telling the story. So then I can kind of reveal some of these things. Like I wrote down some of these things that were in my head, Sarah, stuff like kids should do what they're told. You know, I mean, like I that there's some truth in that, but there's also a lot of not truth, right? So like it's so weird. But those statements are pop. Or
I really don't want to raise kids who are just like, yes, tell me what to do and I will do.
Yes, I don't want to raise robots.
It's not safe. It's not. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there, so we won't go there. But yeah.
Another one is the parent. I'm the parent. I'm in charge. You know, basically like you need to do what I say because I'm the parent, right? Once again, it's not like that's a complete not. You know, there is some truth to that, right?
Right.
And so that's why my brain, I think, holds on to these statements. And then the other one was kids should give in to what I want, right? In that sense of like, I'm dictating this, just say yes, just agree, just do this. And that's actually not the kind of kids we want to raise. We want to raise kids who we can co-create with.
Yes, we're doing things with them.
Yeah.
Versus they're just, mindlessly obedient to whatever.
Well, and even I think that's what Brendan was thinking. I was thinking, he was thinking the way you've raised me was to say, I want to go down this other trail, right? It wasn't to just go.
I have a thought too.
Yeah. We've raised them to do that because we think that's healthy.
Even if we can't always do what they want, we want them to come to us. What's your desire? What's your thought? Maybe we can do it. Maybe for whatever reasons we won't be able to, but you are heard. You are seen. Your opinion matters.
And I loved, Sarah, what you did in the car is even as we were talking about this, I still was a little confused about what we could have done differently. And that's the end thing, right? So once we've done these steps where first we sought understanding, then there's some taking responsibility, sharing your perspective kind of with the kid. And hopefully there can be this back and forth. It's not just a big dialogue, a monologue.
Yeah.
But then the last part is, what are we going to do different next time? You know, what's the change we're going to implement? And I loved what you said, where you broadened my imagination by saying, I think at that moment, could we have just not slowed down, just been patient and just listened? You know, and as you said, I'm like, I think that totally would have solved everything. If I would have taken a moment to just hear what Brendan was saying, and later on we found out that trail he was taking, it would have made us backtrack, right? And Brendan eventually saw that, but in that moment, I probably could have shown him that just by saying, "Oh, hey, Brendan." But
we just pause for a second, have the conversation.
But I hope all the listeners hear this, Sarah, that what happened in the dance between him and I was shutting down. I wasn't listening. I was getting rigid and demanding my way. And then he was doing the same thing back. And instead, if I would have come with open hands rather than a closed fist, I would have helped him open his hand too. And then he probably, I mean, I think not 100% certainty, but he probably would have been much more receptive and open and thought, oh, okay. Oh, you're right, Dad. Yeah, let's go to, and I would have gotten the same outcome that I wanted, which was him just being cooperative, right?
Yeah.
But the cooperation came through me listening and connecting with him and understanding where he was coming from. And that's true of you and I in our marriage. That's true of every stinking relationship I have in life. I just did that.
Understanding is really important. And I think you do a great job of creating a safe space where they feel like in those moments, they can say the things to you that they don't think you want to hear, right? They can be really, really honest, and you create that very safe space for them to do it. Because otherwise they'll be like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And they'll just, a lot of kids will just, not everyone, but a lot of kids would just like hold it inside and tell you, oh, there's nothing to say.
Because they say mom and dad say they want to hear it, but when I do, they blow up and they freak out.
Or it comes back to me later.
Yeah, they'll hold on to it.
It's like in the moment I can tell them, but next week I'm going to hear about it. Next month they're going to bring that back up and use it against me. And we ruin it for ourselves when we do that. The other thing I think you do a great job that I think can be hard as parents is pausing and having that moment of self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
What was the story I was telling? What messages are going through my head? Because to go into that conversation and be understood yourself, you need to pause long enough to realize what was going on, what triggered me or what got me in that space.
Yeah, because you and I were talking about that. That's actually the gold of these moments is lots of times these thoughts, these things like I'm saying, like, do what you're told. These things are taking over the driver's seat and they're just taking me where I don't want to go. And the more aware we are of these statements that many times we're given to us by our parents or by teachers when we're younger.
It's like a system.
Yeah.
It's a system that's operating.
Yes, this is the very thing that we need to be aware of to then change that. So then we don't give it to our kids. Because otherwise, we've all been there where we have repeated and said to our kids the very thing as a kid that we were like, I'm never going to say that to my kids. But then we are saying it because in that moment, we're getting dysregulated and reverting back to these old pathways. And we're just spewing these things or thinking about them. And then all of a sudden now I'm like all rigid and mad about statements I don't even necessarily believe.
Yeah. Or you can, at least it opens up the option for you to take the little bit of truth that is still in that statement and decide, okay, I'm going to take this little piece here, but then that's not serving me. So I'm going to get rid of that. There may be times we need to say, hey guys, you need to do it where we're going. You need to follow.
This is important for you just to follow, sure. Yeah.
But I with that, I want them to have a voice. I want them to feel heard. Mm-hmm. So how can we create a space where both of those things can be together? Mm-hmm. And that's a goal of ours.
Well, and what's cool about it is in the kids, lots of times when we reveal these kind of voices in our heads, the kids will go, oh yeah, no, I could, because sometimes that would be important, but other times I'd want you to listen to me and hear me out, And so even then they are hearing it and they're understanding it, hearing where it could come from, why we might think that, but then also showing us ways in which that doesn't play out, in certain situations. So, so anyway, I hope this situation, just revealing this to you, how this was just a few weeks ago, Sarah, right? And this is something that we are still working through. And it's something I don't necessarily think I ever want to get rid of. Not to say that I want to be okay with acting like this, but I think it's a part of being human. And being perfect is not my goal. And when I mess up, I want to know how to mine those mistakes that we make for the good that's in them, And we want to raise kids who, yes, they have self-control. Yes, they are self-disciplined. Yes, they are regulated. But I want them to know when they mess up, there's still gold to find in those mistakes, right?
Yeah. And you model that to them because they're going to be human too and mess up. Yeah.
And that's how we learn. So Sarah, I wanted to end for every listener. This is how we want to end 2024 is like, man, we're growing and changing. Mm-hmm. We're learning new things all the time. And so are you. And I want to give you some grace and just some compassion that like 2024, I'm sure had some hard times and some great times. But take a moment to just understand you're not meant to be a perfect parent. You're just wanting to be you want to be a parent that isn't afraid of failure and making mistakes, but instead knows how to learn from those and how to do it hand in hand with your kids so you can all grow and learn and be better. And you can change the legacy in so many beautiful ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's lovely.
Yeah. So we hope you have a happy new year and that everything is safe and you have fun, looking forward to, with hope, to 2025, that you can create the family that you are dreaming of.
Thanks for joining us today.
The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.